if you can't hear me, please wave or something or shout. Is everybody all set? Everybody good to go?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you all for being here this evening to the special workshop that we're having before the meeting. It's about the solar fees, and I'll turn it over to Steve real quick, and then I'll probably jump in and chat for a little bit, and then I imagine Ken may have some input as well, and other commissioners, of course. So, Steve, if you would kick us off, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commission. Ken and Delane are both here to answer any questions. And I know in our original discussions, the thought is to make the solar fee that's currently charged. I think we have like 3 or 4 customers to maybe bring that down a little bit. I think is what your thought had been in our previous discussion. So I'll turn it back to you, Mayor, to take it away.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell, and thank you for that. I've talked about this, I don't know, maybe once or twice, at least once. I know twice recently, you know, with Ken and with Steve, and Kathy weighed in a little bit on the last time we sat down and chatted, and wanted to go ahead and do a workshop for everybody else involved, of course, the rest of the commission as well, and any other folks that may want to weigh in on this, specifically Ken and Delane, along with the commission. But kind of the discussion, the Cliff Notes version of this is that the solar customers, of which what we're talking about here, and Ken, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, I think when we chatted, it was 3 residential customers that this would have any impact on for the entire city at a cost of, I don't know, $400 to $500. I think that's a fair estimate. Does that seem about right, Ken?
So, actually, this is Delane's wheelhouse. She's the billing supervisor, so we'll let her jump in here. But before we do, let me just kind of fill in the rest of the commission of where we are as staff. The mayor met with, like he said, Steve and Kathy and myself, and had asked basically, why is the customer charge for solar higher than a residential customer base charge? And then we did some explanation as to why that charge is there, and that we felt at the time, and even today, that it's a justifiable charge. However, with that, the commission they drive the boat when it comes to what we charge for any of our services. So that's kind of where we are as staff today, as to tell the rest of the commission, if that's what you're wanting, why the charge, the $38 we have is in place, and how we got there. And if you guys wanted to change that, it's up to you to decide where you want to go with that and why. It's just got to be something that's fair to everybody, in my opinion, and the way I look at it. So we'll turn it on over to Delane, and she can kind of give you the rundown on billing.
Okay, yeah. So we have right now 4 residential customers. We have one that is a really good solar customer that recently came online about 2 years ago. And what I mean by good is that their system works for them as it should. So in the summertime, they overproduce. So that means they don't use as much as they're producing by their solar system. In the wintertime, definitely they use more electricity from the city of Aztec. So their bill consumption. We have another customer who went online about 4 years ago, almost to the date 4 years ago, who has never overproduced. They continually to purchase electricity from us every month. Then we also have one that's kind of sporadic, and it's tenant in there that's kind of in and out. It just depends on the tenant, and I think how their usage is and how well they maintain that solar system. We have another one that just came online probably 6 months ago, and that seems to be another good system that we'll see, you know, really good production of solar versus their electricity use. They'll overproduce in the summer, not so much in the winter. The thing with the billing rates is, when I heard about this, for me, it's a different animal. These 4 customers, every month, I have to manually go into their accounts. I have to look at their usage. So our good solar customer who overproduces, I have to go in and change the usage to 0. Because just like a car odometer, that's how I explain meters to customers, is meters always go forward. Okay, so when they overproduce, the meter is actually a reading less than we got last month. But in a billing world, everything is in the positive. So it goes over, and it looks like they use like 99,000 kilowatts, when in fact they used a negative 119, so they overproduced. So I have to go in and change those manually to back to 0. And that's not something we really want to do in the kind of that world, but we have to do that. There's also, so every month I do that on those 4 customers. The billing rates aren't as complicated for solar customers. And what I mean is, in the wintertime, no one has ever overproduced them. So they use more than they produce in the winter. So our rates are set up that they only have to pay for the power cost supply. So as a non-residential customer or non-solar customer, we pay the solar power supply, or sorry, not solar, power supply cost and the operational cost, because we're always getting electricity. But a solar customer in the wintertime, they kind of don't pay for the operational cost because it's built into their base rate all year long. And part of that base rate is our fees here in my office, because we have to manually go calculate those rates. They're also using our system to store, you know, they have to have a major battery system to store that electricity that they're overproducing for the nighttime. They're always going to use electricity from us during the night. During the winter months, they're always going to use that, even with a good solar system that we have. So with the rates, I've kind of done some calculations because I heard about the meeting and, you know, wanted to let you guys kind of know. Since we began this with our rate study, I mean, we did this rate study for a reason, and it cost, I think, $60,000 to $100,000 about 4 years ago. And when we started this in 2017, it was probably 2016 when we really started the rate studies. But we set up the solar customers so we would all kind of be on equal ground for the customer charge. Those customers, as you guys probably explained to the mayor, was that the customer charge, base charge, a lot of people call it, we call it a customer charge. Those solar customers still get all the benefits of non-solar customers. They get tree trimming for free. If it's in the power lines, they get their meters reread. They still have all that service from us, just as if a non-solar customer would have. But the rates for a non-solar is kind of a tiered rate. Not so much the more you use, but we give a first 100 kilowatts as the customer charge. So based on the same amount of usage, I kind of went over the last 5 years of the solar customer that uses an average 572 kilowatts from us during the winter months, or the customer that never overproduces, they pay less for that same amount than a non-solar customer does. So for right now with our rates in 2020 that just started, that solar customer is $5.69 less than a non-solar customer. So they kind of do get some benefit every month. I mean, that's like almost $57 a year towards their solar usage, because they don't pay the operational charge. They're just paying power supply cost. So I don't know. And then when they're not producing, it's $38 a month flat charge. So I don't know if that kind of helps some of the billing stuff that goes on, but I can give you way more information, but I don't want to bore you too much.
Well, and if I could chime in, what I proposed when I spoke with the city manager and with Mr. George is that, and with Ms. Lamb as well, is to bring the solar base rate in line with the standard Aztec, like myself, the 25, or I'm not even exactly sure. I'm ashamed to say. I think it's $25 as opposed to $37, or 37 and change for the solar customer and 25 and change for standard use customers. And my proposal was just to bring that down, and just keep in mind, we're talking about 3 or 4 customers here. 4 customers, Delane, is that accurate?
Yeah, 4 is accurate.
Okay, so we're talking about 4 folks, not 4,000, or 400 even. And just kind of bring that back in line. And my whole thought is that it's not going to be a wallet buster for us. And it is, I mean, if you guys have been reading the paper lately, there's a community a couple miles to the west of us that's undergoing litigation right now over, and I know it might be a little apples and oranges, it's not 1-to-1 as far as what they do to what we do. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to show that we are a little bit ahead of the curve on this. We're friendly to renewables, especially solar. The prices of solar have come down significantly, even since that rate study was done. And I know it's a small thing, and I would say it's an earthquake here that what we're trying to do. But I feel like it's a positive step as a community to folks that are like-minded, that are starting to think that way. I mean, gosh, when's the last time it rained here? Except for that few days about 2 weeks ago. We all know that we have plentiful sunlight here, and I think to take the stance that we're very positive and we're doing little incremental changes to attract folks, that we put a solar system up as the prices come down and it becomes more and more competitive. I think it's a step. Again, it's literally not even a handful of people that we're talking about here. I don't know. I think the economics of it might be slightly off. You might say, well, so-and-so is getting a couple of dollars than I am. But I think it's a good trade, and that's kind of where I am on it. And I mean, I don't have solar either, but I do think it's something that we should strongly consider as we move forward and we kind of talk about this some more. So I don't know if anybody else would, Mayor Pro Tem, I see you.
Yeah, I just want to refresh my memory on our past meeting on this. How did the 4 people feel that are on this system? Have you had complaints about the fee?
Right, that's something else I wanted to bring up. There's been no complaints. Usually that's kind of a driver to change rates because something's out of line. But no one has complained about the rates that they have for the residential customers.
The other question I have, and I know some communities buy back extra power that's produced by people with solar. That's not what we do, correct? There's no way for us to trade off the, Yeah, that is correct. We don't buy back at the current time right now. It's not to say that we can't, or as a commission that if you guys choose to do so, that it's not something we wouldn't do or can't do. It's definitely something we would just have to change a policy, ordinances, that type of thing. And right now it's only 4 customers, but there's a breaking point somewhere. And that's kind of why we did that rate study, is to bring those in line. We paid a lot of money for that to make this all happen. But yeah, we can always buy back. It's just a matter of what the commission wishes to do. okay.
Right now, go ahead.
Does Farmington buy back? It seems like I remember looking at this in the past, and some company close by buys back the power that's produced. Do you know that?
Ken would probably know more than that. I don't think they do buyback for residentials. But
Okay.
La Plata might.
And the other, I'm very pro solar, and this is affecting so few people. I also know we need a fairness issue of what the city is providing versus what it's costing individuals. But the last time we looked at this, I went home and looked at my electric bill, and my electric bill was about the same cost as what the fee is, which would make it no incentive if I wanted to, do solar on my house. So that was a surprising thing. And I just wondered what other communities do in relationship to, incentivizing solar versus charging.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's a mix across the board. There's a lot of different varieties that are out there, a lot of different rate structures that happen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we definitely, want to promote solar. We're not a negative solar. We want it, here.
Uh-huh.
It's, and it is only 4 right now, but you still have to think if you put some rates in place, you got to think about the future of what's that going to do is the rest of as we get more and promote solar, do the rest of our rate paying customers have to make up that difference? Because the rate study all brought all those fees and rates in line to make it fair and equal for everybody across the board. So if we reduce a rate for someone else, will they have to, another classification of a customer, will they have to be charged more to make up for that difference? Yes, right now it's only 4. So,
Right.
Not a
Right.
big deal, not a deal breaker, but.
And that would be my concern, is the equality of the situation between solar and those who do not have solar, and us ending up paying for them to have solar. So it's a lot of questions involved.
Yeah, something else I just want to point out that reminded me is, I told you we have good customers, which we love those too, because they're paying the $38 in the summer, not much at all. And then we also have a customer who put on solar about 4 years ago, but has always either never produced enough for his needs, but yet he's getting the rates of a solar customer. But he's just like any of us. He uses our average for residential customers around 500 kilowatts, a little bit more sometimes in the summer, this fluctuates. But this customer always, every month, uses about 500 kilowatts of electricity from the city. But he's getting the benefit of a solar rate customer. Now, is his system too small for his needs or what? But so does that mean someone can just put on one solar panel and call themselves a solar customer, and then we still provide them electricity and put up take down trees?
Right.
But they get the benefits of the rate? I mean, that's going to have to be defined, if we do change anything.
Also, isn't it true that if you're off the grid, you don't have the fee? Is that, there's people that are producing, I think there's one in the city that produces.
Yeah, we have one,
Yeah.
it might possibly 2, but I know for sure one, I think it's Carl, but he completely though, off the grid, disconnected from our system. He doesn't rely on it at all, but the others
And
are connected. to our
that's
system.
possible for people to make that choice. If
Right.
they, okay.
And so just so you know too, I think you guys all mostly know how solar works, but customers use electricity from us at night. Unless you have some big battery backup, every solar customer needs us at nighttime.
Okay.
When the sun's out, they don't need us.
Okay.
Even if they overproduce, it's just going back on the lines, but they still need us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I can hop in here for just a second, a couple things listening to this conversation. Number one, yes, there are a lot of other utilities that do a lot of different things, and some of them buy back at very attractive rates. P&M being one of those. They were mandated by the PRC to meet a certain portfolio of renewable energy. And to meet that portfolio, it was much cheaper for them at the time to pay considerable, like 10 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour for somebody to buy power from somebody on their house than it was for them to go out and build a solar facility or a wind facility. That was 10 years ago, and some of those rates are still in effect. Farmington, I believe, does pay back for overproduction at what they call avoided cost. Our avoided cost would be 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. That's what we pay Guzman for purchase power. So if we were to go that route, that would be the number that I would suggest we use is 4.5 cents that we would buy their power for. What else? The other thing that I want to make sure the commission was clear about is the solar rate it's $38 a month as a customer charge plus 5.5 cents for anything they get from the city. That 5.5 cents is nothing more than a pass-through of what it costs me to get power. That's what it comes out to as an average by the time I buy it from Guzman, WAPA, and my transmission charges to get it here comes out right at 5.5 cents. And that's where that number came from. So the only money that the city receives on a solar customer is that $38 a month. That's truly what we make off having to supply that customer 24/7, 365. Anytime their solar is not producing, we're there as their backup. The last thing I wanted to throw in here is when we hired Raftellus to do the rate study, they were told at that time, we knew that the typical customer was subsidizing solar. So one of their missions was that we want, number one, that solar is not subsidized, and number two, that the other side, that neither side subsidizes the other. We need a fair and equal rate for solar. And they went to work, they did their studies, they pounded out the things that they do. They look into everything that we do, our costs, and that's where the $38 came from. So I just wanted to throw that out to make sure everybody knew why that rate is what it is and where it came from.
And if I can add a little bit to that customer charge, before we did the rate study was $6.25. So as a utility, we want to make sure that we get our operational costs. So if someone decides not to use as much electricity or having a medium, not hot, not cold type of year, we're always going to recover that customer charge because it's always billed. So just like water, we're always going to get those base charges. That's part of our operational charges. That's, I guess you could kind of say like a guaranteed revenues coming in because everybody has to pay that. Because before we were doing $6 for a base charge, but charging 14 cents per kilowatt hour, which, everybody complained because we were higher than the other communities. Now our rate per hour is about 11 cents per hour for a non-solar customer. So just to kind of keep that in mind, that's how the base rate in Raftellus kind of went with, so it's more even. So like next year in 2021 is when that 5-year incremental rate increase happens. That's the end of that structure. We'll be at $30 base charge for non-solar customers. So then the solar customer will go up to $42.36. So if there's something that you guys want to, change or play with it there, but then again, it's coming back to where else do we adjust to make the rest of our solars, equal and fair.
Hey, Commissioner Lewis, I don't know if you still had a comment. I saw you were.
I did. Well, Actually,
Go ahead.
Delaney answered part of it because I was,
Okay.
you did a good job of explaining, Delaney, but I get confused easily sometimes. And so now I understand better. There's a difference, the basic difference between somebody without solar and somebody with solar. The base rate is like about $12, more or less. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, right now it's about, our base charges are about, $8, $10 difference. But that's because we took a 5-year plan to get it up to the $30. We started at 6 and now we're gonna end up at 30. But our rate per kilowatt hour is gonna be down at, 3 cents
Okay.
for the operational cost. So
So
8 cents.
I need a clarification then, because what is the base rate for a non-solar customer is what?
This year is 25.75.
And right now, so right now it's 25.75, and what is it for a solar customer?
$38.
Okay, so there's a $12.25 differential between the two currently.
Right, and then a
Wait a
non-solar,
second.
yeah,
That
and a
gap will stay
non-solar
the same
customer,
next year.
yeah. And a
Okay.
non-solar customer pays about 8-9 cents per kilowatt hour, where a solar customer, if they have to purchase, pays 5 cents, 5.5 cents.
All right, thank you.
Mayor,
That answers the question. Thank you.
Commissioner, okay, I see in the camera view's a little off, so I saw you waving a comment. Go ahead, sir.
well, two things. One, I think Roslyn touched a couple things that I think is very important. Is one, if we start cutting rates and we only have 4 people and they're not griping about the rates, then eventually somewhere down the line, that's gonna be a pass-through for that revenue coming in. It's probably gonna be passed on to regular customers that I would be concerned about. And right now, our rates are pretty high. When you talk to people, I mean, I'm not gonna gripe, but I would be concerned that if we start cutting those rates, especially if they're not griping about it at this point in time till we get more people on solar, then I think that's the time that it needs to be looked at. That would be my suggestion anyway.
Thanks.
I do have another question, Mr. Mayor, and actually this is probably aimed towards Mr. Gobble. I don't know the wheres and what fors of the current litigation in Farmington, but I believe their structure is different than ours. And I know there was comparisons with other utilities down south that had to adjust or change how they were doing business. But I think we are working on a different kind of system here. Do you know how this? I mean, legally, are we in fairly safe ground, or what do you think, Mr. Gobble?
I mean, I don't necessarily see you in any adverse position as far as any different legal consequences. I mean, it is kind of obvious that we're treating solar versus non-solar maybe a little bit differently. And I think as long as you don't have any, just, basically as long as you have valid reasons for doing so. And it sounds like Delane touched on a study that they conducted 4 or 5 years ago where they invested quite a bit of money to do all this rate structuring. And I'm sure that's probably where the rates came out of. And I don't necessarily know, I'm not really in tune with Farmington's litigation or anywhere down south's litigation on the issue. But I mean, I don't necessarily see any potential liability at this point, just based off what I've heard here right now. And to be honest with you, this is all kind of new to me. I mean, obviously I wasn't the city attorney when you guys established the rate structure 4 or 5 years ago when you did the study. So, I don't think that, you're in any adverse position or treading on dangerous ground at this point.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Commissioner.
Okay. Anybody else? And I'm gonna specifically ask Commissioner Randall because he hasn't weighed in, and I just wanted to see if there's anything that you wanted to add. We are at 5:52, so we're to the point where we're gonna be wrapping up pretty soon. But I don't know, Mr. Randall?
Yeah, I'll be brief. I just, similar to what Delane said, I mean, the rate study was a big deal back when we did it. And I remember this discussion coming up with Raftellus, and their study showed basically exactly what we're doing, and that's what our backup and reasoning is, just similar how as Delane described it. So it makes sense to me the way it is. I don't think, unless somewhere out there we're getting a bad rap for not being solar friendly, but I mean we have our solar farm and we've been doing a lot of things to try to get to that point. So we welcome anyone that wants to do solar. I think it's a great thing to have, and I think everyone has to do their fair share. I mean, I know it is frustrating on the side of if their base rate's going to be higher, but they have to have the service regardless. Just like Delane said, if it's dark or they can't pull from their solar, they're going to need us, and they need to pay just like everyone else does. So, and if they're getting a better rate, that's kind of their pro, but their con is their base. So, I don't know. It sounds fine to me, especially if no one's. I thought someone was complaining about it and it was a big deal. I didn't realize no one's ever had an issue with this. So, I say we just keep doing what we're doing. So, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay. I'll give our two department heads there an opportunity if they want to do any, kind of sew this up a little bit, or any other commission. Well, I'll hit the commissioners first. How about that? Does anybody want to add anything else? Any other quick questions before we take a minute to get ready for our regularly scheduled meeting? I don't see any. Delane, I'll let you go first if you like.
Yeah, I just kind of want to add to, Ken's comment, if you guys want to review this and review the rates and you feel it's necessary, that's certainly always in your power to do that, to review it and, come up as a whole commission on what you want to do to see changes or anything like that. So, it's not set in stone is all I just want to say. So, okay.
Thank you. And thanks for the information as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Ken, is there anything you would like to add before we close it up?
Just a couple of things. I want to reiterate that when we went into this with Raftellus, we wanted to make sure that both sides of the parties had a fair and equitable rate, and I still believe that happened. And I think all you guys know that I promote solar. That's why I promoted our first solar field, and I want to get our second one as soon as we could afford to do so. And the third thing is I did read in the paper a couple Sundays ago that Farmington had won the litigation, and then it was sent to an appeals court. So they are still under litigation with their rate structure.
Yeah.
So I just want to mention that at the district level, it looked like, according to the paper, that they had won. The city had justified their rate.
There was actually, and I just happened to see this the other day. Not even preparing for this, I just happened to read it. Maybe somebody that I'm friends with on social media posted it. I don't recall, but I believe the retraction was that the court kicked it back because of jurisdiction. So it's basically kind of still, it's not. It wasn't a positive or a negative towards that suit, and I could be mistaken, but it was the retraction that I read was that it got kicked back because of jurisdiction issues, not validity of the suit or anything. So it wasn't really a win-loss thing from what I understand. And again, I'm not a subject matter expert on their litigation either, but that's kind of what I'd read. But that's neither here nor there, I guess, at the end of the day. But anyway, Mr. Mueller, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea if we distribute that study out to all the commissioners again to refresh memories, or have people look at it for the first time, since some might not be aware of it. After a review of that, we can certainly set that again, or draft an ordinance with some different options that commission could consider.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I'll work on getting that out toward the end of this week or first part of next week.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you everybody that's in attendance. I appreciate the information. I always learn something every time I have these conversations. I have to be honest, I'm still leaning towards dropping the base rate a little bit. And again, I think if we had hundreds of them, we'd be having a completely different conversation, and we would have to have that conversation if it turned into a number like that. But regardless, we'll leave it at that for now. I really appreciate everybody's input. I think it was a good discussion. And again, thank you for the information, and for to Ken and Delane for filling us in, and for everybody's input. I thought it was great. So thank you. We have just a couple of minutes, so if you want to grab some water, we'll be back here in about 2-3 minutes for the regular meeting. Thank you, everybody.
This conference is no longer being recorded.